We are going to continue with the new form of tag values that have been introduced in HTML5. So I'm just going to create a separate form for this. Okay, so let me just add one horizontal line over here. Okay, and I'm just going to create these tags randomly now because for a quick understanding. So I'm just going to write few input tags quickly. So let's say I've added BR, okay, and then these 6 or 7 tags, okay, and I'm just going to add the new type values that we have. Let's say date, time, local, then month, time, week, number, range, URL, color. I think that is all. I'm just going to add one more submit button over here, okay, and I'm just going to remove this. So again, in this form I'm just going to add a method as get, so that in the URL you will get an idea that new variables are displayed. And just for the namesakes, I'm just going to add name for a few of the input tags. So let's say I'm adding here email, and let's say range here. When I refresh, so these form variables or these form elements have got added over here. So if you notice, for Datetime-local, we have got HTML control from HTML5, where using which you can specify the date. Okay, so something like this. You can also click on this and change the values. Okay, or you can click here and a calendar will be shown up. Okay, if you want to reset these values, you can click on cancel. If you notice in the previous example, this label tag is not closed properly, so it is creating an issue for us, because whenever I'm clicking here, the focus is going to the file option. Okay, reason is that a label tag is here, which is indicating that this label also is going to include whole of this part. Okay, so we need to close this tag. So somewhere we are required to be sure that we close our tags properly. So when I refresh now, so that behavior is gone. Okay, so it's working fine now. So all the tags are closed properly. So let me just put it on the next line. So now continuing with this date time control that we have, we can specify date from here, and time is something that you'll have to type in manually. Okay, so you can add AM PM as well. Okay, so this you can change using the arrow keys. Okay, or you can type the numbers here directly. Okay, now the next control that we have is the month control. Okay, so here we can just select the month, okay, like this. Okay, you can change it using this up down control, and you can also reset it using this cross icon. And similarly you can set the time using the keyboard, and you can specify AM and PM as well. And the next is for the week control. So here again you will get the calendar, and on the left hand side you will have the number of weeks. Okay, week number. Okay, and you can select, so the week 30 will be selected. So the next control is for the number control. Okay, if I just refresh, so this number is going to start from 0 by default. Okay, so if you want to change, here we can specify minimum is, let's say, -1 or -2, and maximum is equal to, let's say, 10. Refresh. Okay, so if you notice, my minimum range is now -2, and the maximum value that I can set here is 10. Okay, so you can hold your mouse, these values get automatically scrolled down or scrolled up automatically, or you can click on the single mouse button like this. You can also change the step increment. Okay, as in by how many steps the number will get incremented. So default is 1, and if I refresh, so you'll notice that the step counter is now 2. Okay, then we have a range attribute. So again, for range you can set similar values. Okay, but of course these values won't be displayed here, but for user it is easier to select the range like this using a dragger. Okay, and these values that we have can be accessed via JavaScript, and these values can also be sent using your form variable. Okay, so let me just try to copy and paste these values here. Range. Okay, so I'm just going to, let's say, set 3 values. Okay, so starting from 1 to 3. Okay, I'm just removing this part. Okay, if I refresh, so notice only 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so 3 values are there. Okay, so if I add 4 values will be displayed: 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, if I add step equal to 2. Okay, so see now 1, 2. Okay, So only two values. So because it is starting from 1, so 1 plus 2 is, the value is set as 3. Okay, now from 3 plus 2 is 5. Okay, so that is why, if you can notice that, this counter is actually more on the right hand side. Okay, so to have it perfectly aligned, either I can set minimum value as 0, so it is properly in the center now. So it is 0, then 2 and 4. Okay, so this is how we can use the range HTML control. Then we have email. So here it will ensure that proper formatted email is provided, and here it will ensure that correct URL is submitted by the user. Okay, so even here it is not allowing us to go ahead. So if you check that, proper URL means along with http :/ they are expecting. Okay, so now it is a proper URL and the form has got submitted. So to check that, you'll see that these values have appeared here. Okay, because those values are submitted. Okay, and why those values are appearing in the address bar? The reason is that we have set the method as get. Okay, so just to continue, if a proper email is not added over here, so it should give me an error that this is an invalid email address. And if you want a certain field to be compulsory field, then obviously you need to write required attribute over here. Okay, so you can write something like this, required, and it will always give you an error that this particular field is required. Okay, and finally we have color picker. Okay, so you can pick this color information. Okay, I'm changing the color tone from here and selecting the color. Okay, you can also use the color picker like this, and you can pick up any color value. So if you notice, once you select the new color, this color selection changes here, and once the selection color is changed, you can close this pop-up. You can also select these other options too, okay, whichever is comfortable for you. And once you have, let's say, some value associated with it, let's say color code. Okay, I refresh, I'm selecting the color again. Okay, and closing this window. I'm trying to submit. Because this field is now compulsory, we are required to select some value for it. Okay, so submit. So we need to specify the time. So I'm just picking up something here and clicking on submit. So it has got submitted now. So let us check here. So if you check, this color code variable has also got added into query string, and this is the color code scheme that is sent to the server. So obviously this information needs to be decoded because this is into encoded form. Okay, so that was all for HTML control. You must have noticed that when we submit this particular form, information related to this form will be submitted. Okay, so important point that we wanted to make is we can have multiple forms on the same page, and HTML controls from those forms can send their individual values. Okay, so just to quickly revise the controls that we have seen in HTML5 as well. So these are the slides for that. So we have seen Datetime-local. It allows us to select both local date and time. The value includes date, time, year as well, along with the time in hour, minute, and will give you option to select AM, PM. Then we have email control, wherein we can use it specifically for entering user's email address. Okay, it ideally works well with the required attribute. Okay, and once it becomes part of your form tag, it will start giving you validation errors as well. The same applies for URL input control as well. Okay, so this is how the Datetime-local control will be displayed like, and this is how we can write code for email HTML text control. And then we have color code selector. Okay, so you can set predefined value to it like this. Okay, and this value can be accessed via JavaScript later if required. Okay, this is optional. Okay, if it is not set, then the color code of this particular field will be black. Okay, so this is the default color code. The color scheme is in the hexadecimal format, which is standard in web-based application. Then we have date control. It also allows you to select date only, so time won't be displayed here, and this includes date, month and year. So this is the example. You can write type equal to date, and you can set a default value to it like this. Okay, and this is a sample date control. You can reset this value using X control. Okay, you can change individual of these values using up down control, and this will show you a pop-up calendar like this. Okay, and we have seen the example in the live coding sessions as well. Then we have month tag similar to date. Okay, you can specify string format like this, okay, and this is the sample. So this is how it looks. And then for the number text input value, we have additional attributes min, max and step. So range for this particular control will be from 1 to 5. So 5 values can be accessed because step is equal to 1, okay. As seen, if you write 0, 10 and 5 for these values, so when you have step as 5, so only we are talking about 3 values, that is 0, 5 and 10, okay. Fairly easy to understand. And most important point is that it allows to enter numeric values only, okay. So in a way it restricts other character to be inserted in this text value field. So this is one of the sample that this is how it is going to look, and you can use up down control, or you can type in the numbers directly into this text box. Then we have range input type. It basically allows you to enter numerical value in the specified range, but it will show you drag control like this, and we have seen example of this, and you can use same attributes like the number input type. And then we have a search type of input text control. You can specify it as type search. It is used to creating search input fields. You can use normal text field as well, but it will add some level of features to this particular text control, okay. For example, when you have focus on this and you press enter, so it will submit the page automatically. So this is how it is going to look, okay. It will have this cross button by default, and when you click, so this text will be vanished, and user can re-enter the keyword to be searched. Then finally we have tell. So this is used for entering telephone number. You can use a placeholder for specifying the text format, okay. So when user is going to type keywords over here, so let's say 1 2 3 4 5, dash will come automatically here, and then you can write 7 8 9 10. So this is how it will look, okay. So we'll take one example on this, okay. And then we have input type time, okay, wherein the time will be selected. It is almost similar as the date time control. It will have cross button and up down control attached to it, okay. So the time is based on the system time. This is something that we should know. And finally we have URL tag, okay. So if you just specify input type equal to URL, okay, so validation will be done for URL. So we'll try to take one example of this as well. And then finally we have week as the input type, where we can specify the week. So this example we have seen. Now let us take example for URL search and tell attribute values that we have seen. So I'm just going to add lines into this particular code itself. So I'm just going to create 3 multiple values here. So I'm just going to add one tell, search and URL. Inside of URL I'm going to write multiple, okay. And then for tell I'm going to write placeholder format as, let's say, xxx hyphen xxx, okay. And then inside of search I am writing default value as enter search parameter, okay. So if I refresh here, okay, so if you just notice, this cross button is coming when I'm going to type the text, and when I'm entering, it is trying to submit the page, okay. So because now we have a validation, so browser is ensuring that we enter other values as well. I think multiple tag is really not required over here. Alternatively, you can try adding multiple in case of files, okay. So just one additional concept here, when I write multiple over here, okay, and refresh, so when we select this file, you can notice that we can select multiple files now, okay, like this, okay, and those multiple files will be selected here, and it is showing me 3 files here, okay. Alternately, when we don't have multiple, so I have removed, and when I refresh, okay, so it is just going to allow me to select only one file. It is not allowing me to select multiple files, okay. So multiple attribute is really useful in that case, okay. So I guess guys, we have covered most of the input type text control and most of the attributes and values which can be passed to those attributes, okay. I've tried to keep these topics as extensive as possible. So that was all for HTML's input types. Okay, so we have covered most of the points. So let us revise few input elements quickly with the help of our slides. So we have seen password field. So in the password field, it is almost similar to text field. Only thing is that the characters are masked. So this is the code. So you can write these tags inside of your form element. Okay, you can use label. So once you click on this password text as well, or when you can click here as well, so the focus will be shifted here and user can start immediately typing the password. Okay, so in order to this to work, we just need to specify password as the value inside of your type attribute. Then we have seen radio buttons. So in radio buttons, we just need to write input type radio. You can specify name and ID if required. So name is required in case of radios. So these values can be selected alternatively. Otherwise, both will be selected. And similarly, we can use label tag here, and we can specify for attribute, and you can add ID of that particular input element. Okay, so in this case it is this ID. So this is required when you are going to write your label outside of the element. Okay, so this is another method using which you can use the label tag. Okay, similarly for the other element we have done the same. We have added radio button before the label tag and specified the value inside of for element. Okay, so if you notice, this value is common between these two input type controls. So that is how these radio buttons get binded together. Okay, and in case you have a separate set of radio buttons, so you can specify different name for these three radio buttons. Then we have checkboxes. So checkboxes have predefined set of options. Okay, and it allows user to select one or more options. Okay, so like this. If you notice, even the code of checkboxes, we have common values used for the name attributes, and exact similar to the radio buttons. We have used input tags outside of your labels. So you can use for attribute and get this label and input pairs binded together. Okay, so to create this input type checkbox, we just need to write input type equal to checkbox and rest of the attributes. Then we have file select box that we have seen, and basically it allows you to select local files. It opens file select dialog box, and again you are required to use input type equal to file. You can specify the name of this field, and as we have seen, we can add multiple attribute over here. Okay, so once you write multiple, so it will allow you to select multiple files. Okay, so this is how it will look when a file is not selected. This is the default set, and when you select file, it will show one file selected. And if you have multiple, wherein we can select more than one file, so for example, let's say you select 5 files, so it will show you 5 files selected. Okay, then we have text area control. So it is multi-line text input control, so it can be used to receive address from the user. Okay, and you can specify a number of rows and columns that you want to be displayed once the page loads. Okay, this is how it looks, and generally user can extend this text area by dragging on this corner. Okay, then we have select box. So it's basically a drop down list, and we are required to use options along with the select tag. Okay, so you can set default values, so you can select the text that you want to be displayed on the HTML drop down box, and those individual values can be accessed, or those individual values can be submitted when you submit the form, and the value that the form will submit can be specified inside of value attributes. Okay, so these can be numbers or text. You can also use multiple attribute. Okay, so your drop down is by default like this, but when you select multiple attribute, so it will display it as a list wherein checkbox will be displayed. We'll take one live example of this one, and these same values will be displayed, and user can select multiple values like this. And finally we have submit and reset button. So using submit, it submits the form, and reset basically resets all the text input or the selection that user has made. Okay, so we have seen this in detail. So let's say user has entered XYZ over here. Okay, so when user submits, so these values will be submitted to the same page or the specified page, and when you reset, so these values will get wiped out, and it will show you the default text or the placeholder text. Okay, so let us take one quick example of drop down that we have seen. In our example, we have these multiple drop downs. I'm just going to copy that code. Okay, so I'm just selecting this option, creating a copy of it. For simplicity, I'm just going to remove opt groups. Okay, and I'm going to specify multiple here. So when I refresh, so you'll notice that instead of selection in this particular browser, it is displaying as normal list. Okay, so I can press shift and select these values, or I can even drag and select these values. Okay, so this is how the use of multiple. It's not commonly used because it consumes a lot of space of your web page. Okay, if you notice, it has created a lot of white space as well over here, which will be technically wasted. So that is the reason that this particular option is not widely used, but in some cases it might be useful. For example, you have certain selections to be made like this. You have set on your left hand side, and then you have some button, okay, wherein you want to shift these values to another set of container, okay, and maybe you want to reset these values and shift to left hand side again. Okay, so in these kind of rare scenarios you might use the multiple attribute for checkbox. So after submit button, now we are going to check about iframe tag. So iframe is basically used when we are required to open another page inside of a page. Okay, so assuming this is your one page, okay, so inside this web page you can have your code wherein it can open another page. Okay, so as I said, it is used to display external objects. Okay, those can be pages and few other objects as well. Like you can also display image using iframe tag. Okay, it acts like a mini web browser. Okay, so in a way, because it's a browser inside of your browser. Okay, for syntax you are required to use src attribute. Okay, and there you can add the url to the web page or the object you want to display inside of this iframe. Okay, it can be used as a link target. Okay, and it can be named using a name attribute. Okay, so advantage of this is once you name your iframe using name attribute, you can access this particular iframe and all the document object module or the tags inside of this particular iframe from the javascript on the parent. Okay, so once you use the iframe, so this becomes your parent and this is your child in a way. Okay, again inside of particular page you can have multiple iframes like this, but there could be very less number of practical use cases where you may have multiple iframe inside of a page. Ideal case would be you may have few segments on your page, and you are required to load those segments from some different website. Okay, so most of the advertisements that we see are most of the times loaded using iframes. In modern codes, most of the time, a script runs which basically converts that particular section or the slot into iframe code. Okay, so iframes are very popular. Okay, and those are very advantageous when you're especially required to load cross-party websites or websites from different companies or different websites altogether. You can also specify height and width, which are most important attribute. Okay, once you specify height and width, the iframe will be working between those particular height and widths only. So this is a typical syntax of the iframe. You have your iframe tag, okay, then you have your src attribute wherein you are passing your URL. Okay, so this is again one example wherein I have passed the source inside of this iframe, and I have also specified the name for this particular iframe. Okay, so assuming this code to be part of let's say this page. Okay, so wherever I'm writing this page or wherever I'm writing this code, so this particular code will be displayed, okay, in the place of this particular iframe. And then the iframe will be displayed, this code will be displayed, but inside of this page another set of code will be here. Okay, so I think you'll understanding this concept in detail when I'll take an example in the editor itself. Okay, but for now let us continue with other few tags. So the next tag that we are going to see is SVG tag. Okay, so SVG is very useful for vector type of diagrams. Okay, like you must have seen graphs or two-dimensional graphs or some logos which are basically based on vector graphic concepts. So those are basically drawn in the HTML page using SVG tags. Okay, talking about the browser support, so SVG tags basically displayed in all the modern browsers, but few of the versions of Internet Explorer, there you will require adopt SVG viewer. Okay, so if that is not there, then SVG tags may not be visible. Okay, but again, as I said, most of the modern tags support SVG. So here is one example of SVG tag. So we have ID equal to you have specified some ID for this SVG tag, then I have specified height. Okay, This is the format that we can specify. Like for HTML page, we specify a certain mode of how information can be processed. So those kind of rule sets are basically here. So this is again optional. This is not really required. And inside this, you can have multiple tags. Like in case you want to draw a circle, square, or a polygon. So those relative tags are there. So again, we'll be taking few examples of this. Inner tags are similar to tags that we have seen inside of image map. So it's almost like a map that you're drawing. So here I have specified the x and y location, the radius, and the color field. Okay, so these are attributes that you need to specify, and inside of this svg tag a circle will be drawn. Okay, so here is one example. Okay, because this particular color we have specified, so this particular color code is here. Then we have MathML elements in HTML5. Okay, so though this video is recorded in 2020, MathML is not supported in few of the browsers. Okay, but Firefox 3.5 or higher gives the exact results. And most important use of MathML is used to create mathematical equation. Okay, so this is one sample code. Okay, and by using this supporting tags, it has displayed or it has rendered this particular form of MathML. Okay, so now we have taken one example. I think in case of Chrome, it will just plainly display like this. Okay, but inside of a version of Firefox 3.5, it will display something like this. So there is nothing more challenging actually here. So we are just specifying that it's a row for MathML. Okay, again we have specified some standard that needs to be used while rendering this particular code in a certain format. So here I'm specifying that inside of mi tag I have written a and then mn. Okay, so it will of course display it like this. Okay, so you can also notice the slight change in the font also. Okay, so this is more closer to the standard syntax that are being used in mathematics. Okay, you can also notice the difference between this plus symbol or this equal to. Okay, so it will definitely differentiate the way text is being displayed in the true mathematical format. Okay, so these are the standard tags that we need to use. This is always for basically operand. I is basically, let's say, for instruction. Okay, and 2 is basically number. So when we say numbers, so it will be displayed like this. Okay, alternatively here if you notice superscript version is also used. Okay, so these kind of mathematical instructions that you can use to draw. Otherwise, option that we have is either to use image directly. There are a few advanced notations that can be displayed using MathML classes or MathML tags. So again, this is something that we'll see in the live examples. Then we have canvas tag. Okay, so canvas tags are used to draw graphics on the web page. Okay, but in order for the canvas graphics to work, we also are required to use JavaScript along with it. Okay, so that is the only way graphical animation can be built using canvas. HTML5 in fact has become very popular because of canvas tag. So there are very beautiful animations that you can build using canvas tag. So again, a few examples we'll see, so you'll get to understand how this can be done beautifully. So when you load this canvas tags, it has a default height and width. Okay, but you can specify your height and width using height and width attributes like this. Okay, so this is a standard code for creating a canvas on your web page. Now we'll talk about audio and video tag, so which are again new tags that are introduced in HTML5. So audio tag is used to embed audio inside of your web page. Okay, and this audio tags works in almost most of the modern browsers. So once you add some syntax like this, okay, also specifying controls equal to controls, which is again an attribute in case you want to display controls for the audio controller. Okay, so this is how it will be displayed on Chrome browser. Okay, there could be slight variation in terms of how this particular control is displayed across browsers, and you can have multiple sources, whichever type of MP3 files that browser can support, or you can have your different audio versions also. But depending on the file extension, you are also required to specify the type of the audio file. Okay, so here I have specified audio MPEG and audio OGG. So this is something that you can specify inside of your audio controls. Okay, so this is something that is internally handled by the browser. Whichever output that it supports, that particular file will be played from this control. Okay, so instead of this, you can write something like this as well. Okay, so you can have multiple options, a single file in different formats, and whichever works first will be used by the browser to play. Similar to this audio tag, we can use object tag, which was widely used in the previous versions of HTML. Okay, so these particular tabs are still supported. Okay, so object and embed, these two tags are used to display different kind of media files on your web page. Okay, like you can display video, PDFs, images, etc., etc. Okay, so syntactically there is a slight difference. The object tag is quite often used along with the param tag, which is something that we'll also see. Okay, so I'll continue with the video tag. So the video tag was again introduced along with HTML5, and it is used to display video in the web pages. Okay, again it works with all the most modern browsers. The syntax is almost similar to audio tag. Okay, so you can have syntax like this. Again, when you have single format, you have specified source of the file, and for multiple file format, you can specify type as well along with the video files. Okay, you can also mention whether you want to display controls on the screen itself. Again, object tags and embed tags can be also used to display video files on the web page itself. Okay, but in case you have some additional operation that you need to perform, then in that case you can use these options. But in standard cases, video tag is just fine. You can continue using that particular tag. Okay, here is one example. You can use object tag like this and embed tag like this. I specified height and width over here, and I also specified the data file. So in case of embed tag, instead of data, I am required to use SRZ attribute, just exactly same as the audio and video tag. Okay, so we are also required to use param tag. Okay, so this is something that we can use along with the object tag. So this is child element for your object tag. Okay, and it basically works with the name and value. So whatever file that you want to play or display, so to that particular object, these parameters can be passed. Okay, so in case you remember, earlier we used to have HW files, which was shockwave flash files. For those kind of files, object and embed tags were quite popular that developers were using, and this particular tag was used to set parameters for those objects. Okay, so here is one example. So we have one object tag. I am specified an mp3 file, and I am specifying autoflow equal to true as an attribute over there. Okay, so across different objects, different parameters list were there. You can programmatically write action script as well, and you can split custom parameters to that particular action script. Okay, so there are few events in HTML5 as well. Okay, but these events are basically used in conjunction with JavaScript code. Okay, so what are events? So once you click on a certain button, okay, so that will be on click event. Okay, similarly when you press a key, okay, that could be key press event. Okay, so like this there are many different events, okay, which can be used to capture users action and run a certain code based on that particular event. Okay, so these are events. Okay, so again I said hover over a defined controls, as in when you move mouse on a certain element, so that will also trigger that particular event, or clicking on a certain object, that will trigger some event. So once the event is triggered, you can run certain JavaScript code. Okay, so for this particular tutorial, we are not going to dwell too much more into events as such, because that will again require JavaScript code that needs to be written for you to understand. So for this particular lecture, or for this particular tutorial, which is dedicated on HTML5, we are going to skip events topic. Okay, but I'm going to display a few of the common events which are used or which are supported on HTML5. So onload is very common document events that is used, or unload is something that can be used. Okay, so I'm just going to just display these all events. Okay, we have on blur events. Okay, then on focus when a certain element gets the focus. Okay, or on resize when the browser or the web page is resized. Okay, so this particular event will get triggered. Then we have media triggers as well. On error, something can be done. Maybe you can display an error message to the user that there was some error processing the request. okay, or media is paused or video is paused, you can trigger this event. Okay, likewise we also have, on play, you can open some window, or maybe start the caption pages, or you can load the caption images and start displaying on the video. So these kind of triggers can be used along with the media events. Then of course we have key and form events. As I said, key down, key press, or key up. These are 3 events. Then form elements, as in when form is changed or form is submitted. Then we have few elements event, like on change, on drag, then maybe on drop. Okay, so these kind of functions are usually used when you're going to pick or drag a certain object on another object. Okay. Then we have on scroll element, as in when you scroll, this particular trigger will be called, or you have on select event as well. So once a particular element is selected, this particular function will get triggered. Okay, so there are many events. So for mouse we have on click event, or mouse move or mouse hover event. So these kind of different events are associated to mouse events. So with that, we completed most of the tags which are associated with HTML5. There are a few other tags which are still left out and which are still common. I'm just going to display those tags quickly, and then we are going to see tags that we have seen just now in the live coding environment. Okay, so most common tag is again a div tag. Okay, so these are basically used to create a division or section on the HTML element. So div tag is very common tag. It acts as a container for grouping of your HTML sections, or your HTML elements. Usually div tag is heavily dependent on the CSS as well for it to perform correctly, like in case you are required to create 2 sections on the page. Okay, so for that you are required to split that width into 50%. Okay, so these kind of CSS you'll be required to write, or you are required to, let's say, add some padding between these 2 elements. So for this you are required to use CSS. Okay, so that is something again we are going to check in this separate video. For now, just understand that div tags are basically very popular, especially when we are required to develop responsive pages. So when I say responsive, that page will be displayed on a mobile browser in a certain way and a little differently on the web browser. Okay, so this kind of coding requires use of div tags heavily. Okay, I think for now we don't really require to bother about this. Okay, so this is something that we can see in the in a topic wherein we are going to talk about responsive pages. So maybe once we complete our sessions on CSS, that time we'll talk about responsive development. Okay, another important topic is once you have a div tag, so browser automatically introduces a line break because it's a block level element. Okay, and it doesn't have any effect on content or layout until style sheet is applied to a div tag. Okay, so this is general syntax that you can write div tag like this. Okay, but as again you'll require some CSS to see how the div tag can behave. Okay, so just to give an example, you have a div tag wherein no CSS code is applied, but we have used style attribute wherein I have just specified that width is equal to 50% for this particular div tag. Okay, and background color is equal to gray. Okay, so this is the code inside of the div tag. Okay, so if you just notice, so this is the output of this particular code, and this is the output of this particular code. Okay, so if you notice that it has reduced its width. Okay, so if this is your screen width, okay, so you can notice that it has utilized 50% of the screen, and earlier it was using 100% of the screen. Okay, now we'll check about the article tag. Again, it's introduced in HTML5. It represents section of the content that forms an independent part of the document. Okay, so most important benefit of article tag is that search engines, when they scan their page, it will give a weightage to this particular content. Okay, also some devices will on certain read mode they might display this particular text which will be inside your article tag. So most of the e-readers or the browser could have options wherein only the reading will be enhanced. Okay, so most of the times they basically read with the content which is appearing inside of your article tag. Okay, so it is commonly used in blog post, comment sections, or forum post. Okay, and also when a new story is published, So that time, those usually content are placed inside of article tag. Okay, it's again a block level element. Article provides more semantic information to screen readers, search engines, and third-party applications. As I just mentioned, that most of the e-readers will be relying heavily on this particular tag. Although it's an optional tag, it's not compulsory to have on your page. But it's a good idea that the search engine might give more weightage to your content, especially when you are accessing the page from a handheld device. So this is the basic syntax of article tags. It starts and ends with keyword article, and inside this you can have your content. So again, here is one example. So this is the standard code that I have written inside of h1 and p tag, but the similar code section, when I read inside of article, it will have higher search visibility. Okay. Also, if you notice, there will be slight difference between how the default rendering is done for both the tags. Okay. So article has a default look than the other tags. Then again, a new tag, a side tag. Okay. So this is just basically used to highlight certain content aside from your main content. Okay. Content should be related to the surrounding content. Okay. This can be used ideally when you have a sidebar on your page article. It's again a block level element. So as I said, again, this is something that will be used by third-party devices or the softwares or the e-readers, and also by the search engines as well. Okay, but information, as I said, this is at the developer's consent, as in he can decide how exactly this aside tag can be used. Again, it's not compulsory to use, but it can have based on your semantics or how the logic that you're applying to your content, you can use this tag effectively. Again, because it's a block element, you are required to write certain CSS style code like this. Okay, we don't need to bother about this at the moment, but this similar code can be written so that your aside tag can be displayed something like this. So this is how exactly your aside tag will look like. Now this is displaying like this because of the CSS code that was displayed in the previous page. Okay. Then we have a header tag. Okay, so this can be used to display header document or an important section on your page. This can usually contain title and heading information about the page. Okay, again, it's a block level element. So this is how you can use the header tag. Okay, so again, this is something that is really not compulsory to use, but this can semantically you can include this particular tag rather than just using these particular tags. Okay, you can also use the header tag inside of your article tag. Okay, similarly you can have a footer tag, okay, somewhere in the page. So this is how the output for the header tag. Okay, you can notice some default style applied to the sections of your article tag or header tag. Okay, so your header is displayed here and then the text is displayed something like this. Then you have one important tag that is details tag. Again, it's a very new tag to HTML5. So this represents a control from where user can obtain additional information about a particular text specified or the element specified. So detail tags uses two tags. One is the summary, okay, and then you have one open attribute along with the value that can be specified, okay, or that can be displayed when user clicks on the details tag. So once you add open attribute, and if this attribute is present, so the details will be displayed on the page at the time of page is loaded. Okay, so by default it will be displayed in the collapse mode. Okay, but once you click on the displayed elements, it can expand the details. Okay, so if this is the detail size inside of your summary tag, you can write your elements and this can be expanded with this particular information. Okay, so if this is your default code and once you click on this, then this can be expanded to like this. So this particular information which was inside of your p tag, that can be displayed directly. So as I explained in the beginning, if you set attribute open, then on the page load it will be displayed like this. Okay, that is the details will be in the open mode. Okay, then we have a footer tag. Okay, it represents footer information of your document or this section, and it usually contains information about the author, copyright information, or links related to the documents. Or you can also write, contact information or sitemap. Okay, again, this is something that will be used by the search engines. Okay, this is commonly used inside of the body tag. Okay, again, it's a block level element. So this is the basic syntax, and here is one example. So we have added nav tag, okay, which is used for navigation controls. Okay, so I have added few hyperlinks over here, also copyright information over here. So it can display something at the bottom like this. Okay, again, this tag is completely optional, but again, as I said, it will add semantic information to your web page, and search engines or third-party engines can use it properly. So nav tag is basically used for identifying a section or group of navigation links. Okay, so this particular tag can be used to create menu sections in case you have multiple links and you are required to group those links together and display in a certain format. So you can definitely make use of nav tag. So once you have nav tag, it provides a default styling option to the nav tag or the group of links that you have. So in a way, it creates a decent menu that can be used directly as is, and then you can add your CSS code over this nav tags. So you can customize that navigation control or navigation menu based on your choice. So this is general code. So nav tags are generally used along with the UI and li tag, and you can have your multiple links inside of the li tags. Okay, so once you have code like this, it will create a simple menu like this. Okay, and then you can add your CSS code to this particular nav. It can display the navigation links in a more beautiful format. We also have a section tag. Again, it can create custom sections if you want to create in your document. Okay, so header, footer, these can be virtual sections you can create. Okay, not necessarily you are required to use header tags and footer tags inside those particular section, but you can have your custom sections created using section tag. It's again a block level element. So this can divide your content into sections and subsections. This is basically used when there is a requirement of 2 headers or footers or any other section of the document is needed. So section tag is again optional to use, but it's good to have in case you have certain unique requirement of a web page wherein you are required to create multiple sections on the web page. Again, custom CSS will be required for it to act completely according to your specifications. So this is general syntax. Okay, so if you can see, I have created a subsection inside of this particular section. Okay, so this is how it is going to render. Okay, but then you can customize, maybe you can add some space over here, and so that this content can be shifted over here. Okay, that is one example wherein you can use section tags. Okay, or you can have multiple sections like section like this. Okay, this can be your section 1, this can be your section 2, and with CSS applied, this two section tags can be aligned to one another. Then one important tag that we have is the data list tag. It is used along with the input element. It gives you option to specify predefined options to the input elements. Okay, the tag name is data list. Okay, it can be used to provide quick choices of input to the user, and it can also have autocomplete feature. So once you start typing in the input button, it will filter out those options for you. Okay, then you can use list attribute inside of your input tag controls and specify which data list you want to refer to. Okay, so here is one example. So I have created one p tag where I'm writing enter the course name you want to learn, and then inside of one input text control I have specified a list as courses, and then I have created this data list where I have specified ID as courses. So when I specify list as courses, so this particular list will be referred, and inside of this list I have specified multiple options. Okay, so all these values will be part of your input text control. Okay, so something like this. So this will be your text control, and when you start typing in here, okay, it will start displaying this. Okay, so once you write C, only these three options will be displayed. Okay, so I think this is really useful when you have some predefined values and you want a quick filter control. Okay, so in that case this data list can be really helpful. Okay, so we are going to take examples of all these tags that we have seen, and then we have a meter tag. So it represents scalar measurement within the range or a fractional value. This tag is also known as gauge, and it can be used to, let's say, display your disk usage or relevance of a query result and so on. It should not be used to indicate process, as in you should not be use it to indicate certain animation. Okay, maybe you can use it for display certain fixed value that this particular range that currently the meter value is. Okay, you can specify meter x. So this is particular value that you can specify. So we are going to just check the possible values in the next screen and the attribute values in the next screen. It is one inline element. Okay, so once you have certain thing displayed on the web page and you have this tag, so this will be displayed something over here just next to the your previous elements. Okay, so that is why it's an inline element, not the block element. So here are a few attributes of meter tag. So you can specify value as number. Okay, so it will display the current value of the meter. Okay, so this is the required attribute. You can also specify form, and you can specify form ID. So this basically associates your meter element with the form element. Okay, so we'll see one good example related to this. You can also specify high and low in specify number. So when you specify, let's say 10 and 20, and then specify value, let's say 15 over here. Okay, so your element will be displayed something like this. 50% will be filled and 50% will be open. Okay, you can also specify max and min. Okay, again these are numbers. So this is the maximum value of the range and minimum value of the range. So high and low used to specify the range that can be the highest value. Low can be considered as the lowest value. Okay, so you can work really well with these values and create multiple combinations of the meter tag. Okay, you have an optimum attribute as well, where you can specify a number which can be signify the optimum value for the meter. Okay, so we'll take few examples so that you can understand. So here you go. So you have one meter tag wherein you have specified value 0.9. Okay, so because it is specifying in the 90%. Okay, so it is displaying something like this. Okay, in the second example you are specifying value equal to 8 and minimum is equal to 0 and 10. That is why here it is something like this, at the location 8. So this would be your 0th location and this would be your 10th location. Okay, then you have low 60, high 80, then maximum 100 and value equal to 90. So by default your value is at the location of 90, maximum value is 100, and by default it will start from the 0 default value. So low being the lower range. Okay, so it will have certain indicator over here. Okay, and certain indicator over here. So basically you can use these attributes based on the expected output. Okay, then you have a progress tag wherein it represents to display completion of a current task. For example, loading something on a page, or in case you're waiting for some response that is going to be expected from the server. Okay, so these kind of processes you can display using the progress tags. It is marked as a percentage and displayed as a progress bar. Okay, so again it has a max value, that is a number. So this can be used to mention how much work the task requires in total. You can specify value, that is the current value, how much task that is completed. Okay, so here is one example. You will require some level of scripting for this particular page. So you can show a certain animation, and you can change the current value of the progress bar. Okay, because it's going to be start from 0 and the maximum value that I specified is 100. Okay, so in the live examples we'll obviously check how this value can be modified, and how the progress bar will display the results. Okay, on the page load, so there would be nothing blue on the screen, and once you change this value to, let's say, 10, it will highlight this particular area. Okay, now in this particular case we have written a JavaScript code wherein this can increase automatically on a certain time period. Okay, so we don't need to bother about this at the moment, but this is something that you need to just keep our eye on. So this is our tag, progress tag, and inside which I am specifying value and maximum range. Okay, so there are few other tags that are remaining. One is figure tag. Okay, so it is basically just used to specify caption to the figure. Okay, and it is basically self-contained, and it is referenced as a single unit. So you have these two tags, figure and then figure caption. Okay, so figure caption falls inside of your image. You can specify source of the image, and you can also supply a figure caption to that particular image. Okay, so this is how your image will be displayed using the image source tag, and this is figure caption will be attached to your image. Okay, so this is how you can use the figure tag. And finally we have one time tag which defines human readable date and time. It is intended to use encoded dates and time which will be in machine readable format. Okay, allowing better search engine results or custom features, like you can add reminders on clicking on that particular time object, and once you click on that, it will maybe add event in your calendar, or it can help you add reminders in your apps. Okay, so this is really useful when you expect user to take certain action. Let's say you send a link to a webinar, so user can immediately click on that specified time and add a reminder or a calendar event inside the app that user uses frequently. Okay, so you can specify it using the date time attribute. Okay, again, this represents a machine readable time or date. Okay, so this is one example. So I'm saying good morning, it's time this, and now we will meet on time, date time. So this is a system format, and I'm just specifying 5 May here. So for user it will be displayed like this: we will meet on 5 May. But when you click on this, operating system on the mobile or your computer system will give you some additional options, like do you want to create a calendar event for this, or do you want to add it into a reminder. Okay, so this is very useful, and with this we have completed most of the tags that are supported by HTML5. Now let us try these tags that we have seen so far inside of the text editor.